Welcome back. We're thrilled to introduce you to our next guest, who we know as a friend of the Faith and Education Coalition, Brother Jorge Montes, who's a principal of Montes and Associates law firm here in Chicago. And you've just been so kind to us and lended your voice towards education equality. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ramirez. Bobby, thank you for having me.
Well, we're thrilled because, you know, in our show we talk about grand concepts and we want you to feel motivated at home to really equip your student. But every week we want to give parents some real practical tips, and in this case, college students some practical tips. So wanted to invite you to give some tips for our college students and for parents of college students or potential college students.
Absolutely. So at the risk of sounding like I'm boasting, I'm going to tell you that I was an A student and that I graduated magna cum laude from Loyola University in Chicago. I don't say that to boast. I say that to get a little credibility with our audience.
Sure.
Okay, so that the tips that I'm going to give you are excellent tips that worked very well for me. Now, I could sit here and tell you about technology, and I would be a disaster because my 8-year-old girl runs circles around me on technology, so I won't even bother. But I will tell you some real practical tips that'll help college students survive, and more than survive, to thrive through the college experience. And so as I was thinking about what 3 tips to give, these 3 came to mind. One is that the student must keep a nexus to the home and to the church. And it's a shame when we encourage all our young people to go to college and to go and be successful. And then they go and they get lost and they lose the Lord somewhere in the process. And that's heartbreaking, and it's counterproductive to what we're trying to do here today. So there must be a nexus to the church, and there must be a nexus to the home. So for some students, it's not a good idea to go off to the other side of the world. It's important to stay home and go to church on weekends with mom and dad and stay connected to mom and dad because they need that nourishment, that spiritual nourishment from the pastor, from the congregation in order to survive in a very foreign environment. So that's the first one that comes to mind. The second one is time management. Students will find that they're not going to be successful in college if they don't know how to keep their coursework, their time everything out, manage their time. Indispensable. And they should start practicing now to learn when to study, when to go out, and keep their social time to a minimum. The third thing that comes to mind is that it's also critical that students learn how to nourish themselves properly. Very practical tips now. I'm not talking about really scientific things. It's really practical stuff that'll help students thrive in school. Sleep well. And it's kids think it's a badge of honor to say that they did an all-nighter. Well, it's a badge of honor for me to tell you I never did an all-nighter through undergrad, through law school. I never did one. I didn't think it was a badge of honor.
That's
no
fantastic.
Judgment on anybody, okay?
No. But
the fact
fantastic.
is
it's possible.
It's possible if you manage your time properly. And it's, studies show that if you don't get your proper sleep, you're not going to perform properly. And as a student, you want to be at your best. You want to be alert in class. You want to be able to interact in school. And you want to eat well.
Man, those are such good tips, and just taking care of yourself, making sure that you're well nourished and making sure that you're able to sleep, because it shapes the way that you approach your schoolwork, and being close to your church, not losing the connection. And sometimes that means staying closer to home, and sometimes that means finding a church near you, wherever you're at. So what great tips. We thank you for being here and know that that'll be a blessing at home. We want you to know a little bit about the Faith and Education Coalition and about how you can get involved.
The biggest problem in our educational system